Nelson. Melton. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Hug. Mr. President.
Please rise for the pledge and remarks by Councilmember Rowe.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have a seat? But don't get too comfortable. It's been quite a week. It's been a tough week. Who would have thought on Wednesday afternoon when we were heading home from work that we'd be looking into the teeth of a storm that's of historic proportions, a wind event that the city has never seen in its history. I wanted to take a minute to just thank a few people that have been instrumental in getting us back to somewhat normal. And we're not there yet, but we're well on our way. When you think about the men and women of IBEW 763, those are the people that are up there hanging in the trees. They're up on the lines. They're doing the work in the heat of the day. They're putting in 16-hour shifts. We owe them a lot of gratitude and appreciation. Or Local 1483 of the IBEW, the support staff that too are working 16-hour shifts, jockeying schedules, getting supplies to where they're needed, making sure that crews are where they need to be most effective. And we can't forget our Local 251, the men and women that work for the city, that work in the Parks Department, that work for Public Works, that have been doing yeoman's work out there, helping with the cleanup, helping at the dump sites, getting trees off of the trailers, doing work in the right-of-ways. We owe them a debt of gratitude as well. And I want to thank the mayor's team for her leadership and the communication. We've been kept up to date every day as to what's going on. We might not like the answers that we're getting, but we're getting there, and we're getting there quickly. And so I just wanted to take a minute. I honestly think it's worth a standing ovation. If you guys would join me, and let's just show a little bit of gratitude to our people. I know they're not watching. They're out there grinding. They're out there still doing the work. But I'm hoping that they at least felt a little bit of the love and the appreciation that we have for the work that they're doing for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Rowe. I think that's right. And we'll have a storm update here in a minute, but I also want to thank council members. I know this has been a time over the last 5 days where all council members have had heavy volume to emails, texts, phone calls. We've all been volunteering, helping out our neighborhoods. So I know that's been very time consuming for all of us, and we'll continue to do that work until everything is addressed in coming weeks. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
An affidavit of publication is on file for the pre-council and city council meeting, and a current copy of the Open Meeting Act is posted in a white binder on the east wall of legislative chambers.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Omaha City Council. We appreciate having you here today. We look forward to hearing from you on our many items. If you have difficult hearing the proceedings today, you may visit our city county building clerk here up front for a listening device, or you may also check the screen in the back, which has closed captioning. Before we start the regular meeting, we had just 3 items we want to address. First is I want to note that today is also National Night Out Day. So we encourage you all to be involved with your neighborhoods tonight and your neighborhood gatherings. I know council members will be fanning out across the city to our various neighborhoods to support public safety, to support law enforcement, to support neighborhood engagement. And in the case of my block, this is our annual neighborhood watch meeting. So we encourage you to participate in all those things. Secondly, I wanted to recognize Councilmember Bagley. He has a special guest with us today.
Thanks, Mr. President. It's a great honor. Can you hear me? Yep. I know as the dad of 2 daughters and we have kids, gonna embarrass my youngest daughter Madeline Kathleen Bagley in the back.
She's shaking her head. Don't do it.
She wanted to come check her dad out before she starts dental school on Monday at Creighton. So she's going to be gone for here, but she'll be hitting me up on Venmo. Other than that, she's got a long 4 years ahead, but I appreciate the recognition, and thank you, sweetheart, for coming. I love you.
Welcome, Ed.
Thank you.
Well done, Dad. And then thirdly, we did want to provide Public Works and Parks Departments a chance to provide an update at this forum on storm recovery. We had a briefing this morning, and the mayor had a briefing yesterday, but things are moving fast as we begin this recovery, and will be ongoing for several more weeks. So I don't know, Mr. Tyler, would you like to start, or Mr. Stubbe as Public Works?
Bob Stubbe, Public Works. Yeah, first I'd like to thank Councilmember Rowe for expressing appreciation to everybody that's out there in the field working. I also want to express my appreciation to employees within Public Works that are out there working. As I indicated to one of the staff this morning that's directly involved in Public Works, is that Public Works employees, and I think it's applicable to all employees within the city, that they really step up during these times when we have emergencies, and we've had a number of them in the last number of years. So it's a great time to express appreciation to those individuals. Just kind of an update, I think the mayor's provided some information to the public. Just a couple things. One would be is that we've had over, I think, 50 signals that have been without power. I think we're down to about 11, and obviously with OPPD getting more power restored, that'll also translate into signals becoming active. And just a reminder, again, if you see a dead signal, you need to treat it as a four-way stop. With regard to cleanup, we're giving citizens an opportunity to get things prepared. We're going to start working on curbside cleanup starting on Thursday morning. All 5 district yards will have crews working, so it's just not located in one part of the city. It's all parts of the city that will be working. There is a kind of a map that will be active so that citizens, if they have a question, they can go onto the map and actually see where activity is taking place. The other thing that I didn't mention this morning that we just worked on, Jim and Tyler and Carrie in the mayor's office will be putting out some additional information with regard to a number of calls the city has received, the mayor's office has received relative to people because they've had power. They might have spoiled food, they might have enough room left in their bins, so we're going to put a roll-off container out at the under the sink location, which is 120th, just north of I, to allow individuals to, if they have spoiled food, they can bring that material out there starting tomorrow. That'll go for a number of days, 7 to 4, starting tomorrow. So just some additional information for the public. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Kalsovich from the Parks Department's perspective.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Matt Kalsovich, Parks and Recreation Director. I certainly like to take the opportunity to echo Councilmember Rowe and Director Stubbe's comments about thanking the staff and express our appreciation for all the hard work of the team out in the field, addressing things as quickly as we can, and it's gone well so far. The Parks Department, along with Public Works, members of Planning, HR, and others are supporting our debris drop-off locations, and those 5 locations that were established last Thursday are open still and will be through next Wednesday, August 14th. Open 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. A reminder, we're at Greenbrier Park. We're at the football field at 156th and F. We're at Hefflinger Park in 2 locations. We're also at Levi Carter Park and Alves. Those locations, again, are open 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. The support we've received from our other city departments has allowed us to pivot out into the field. So we have parks teams, along with support from Public Works, out addressing some of the issues in parks and public spaces themselves. That will take some time to catch up on, but we're starting to establish some of that work and already making good progress here this morning.
Thank you. Thank you both for those reports and for all your work. We appreciate what you're doing, and we'll continue to work on our end too to help restore power throughout the city and start the debris cleanup in earnest.
Remind people of where they can go on the City of Omaha website, the storm cleanup button, because I've been getting lots of questions. Sorry. I just wanted to remind people of where they can go. I just a half hour ago, someone was confused about whether they need stickers on the bags to be picked up or not have stickers on the bags. And I want to clarify that. If FCC is picking them up, you have to have stickers on the brown bags. If you want to leave the brown bags in the right-of-way where you have the tree debris, Public Works will pick those up on their one-time pass, and there's no charge. You don't have to have stickers on the bag. And correct me if I'm wrong on that. Did I explain it right, Mr. Stubbe? Okay. But if anyone has questions, I would encourage you to go to the City of Omaha's main website. There is now an added button that you can click for the emergency storm information, and it will give you all of that information. I suggest you do that as opposed to ask your questions on Nextdoor and get wrong answers. So it's always there. You can always email any of us, your council members, and we can answer it for you. But I think that's a really great tool that the city has on their website, that the mayor put up on the website. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. And also thank you to neighbors. It's been really encouraging to see neighbor on neighbor assisting each other throughout this process too, and I know that'll continue. Madam Clerk.
Item 6, to consider a Class I liquor license for Cohen Japanese Barbecue and Izakaya located at 3863 Farnham Street, Suite 201.
Public hearing and vote on number 6 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Byung-Soo Choi, the owner of the Korean Blackstone LLC. A DBA name is Korean Japanese Barbecue and Izakaya. So I'm from Lincoln. I have one Japanese barbecue restaurant in Lincoln, and then since we opened 5 years ago before COVID, so we have a lot of good customers and they're from good neighbors, and then we also started have a lot of the good customers from Omaha. So I've been looking for this location a couple of years, and then we got good location and then with the landlord, and then finally I decided to open in the Blackstone area, and then finally I'm here to apply the liquor license.
Great. Yes. Welcome to Omaha. I'm not sure I caught your address. Could you just repeat that?
3863 Farnham Street.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Any other proponents on number 6? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Bagley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. Good afternoon. Thank you
afternoon,
for
sir.
coming down today, and welcome
Thank you.
to Blackstone and District 3, the heart of the district that I represent. I'm honored to make a motion to support this license today, and I wish you the best of luck. I think it's a great fit for you there.
Thank you.
With all the development going on in that bustling neighborhood of Blackstone, a Japanese barbecue is going to be a great thing there, and I'm looking forward to stopping and getting a little
Thank you,
barbecue
appreciate it.
sandwich.
Second.
There's a motion and a
Thanks,
second.
Mr. President.
Yep.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
No further lights. Roll call.
Johnson stepped out. Melton.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Bagley.
Aye.
Harding. Hug. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 7, to consider a special designated liquor license applications for Dundee Days located at Underwood Avenue from 49th Street to 51st Street on August 24th from 7 a.m. to midnight with music until midnight.
Public hearing and vote on number 7 is today. We have the applicant by Zoom. Ms. Paquette, we'll get you off mute. All right, try that.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. We have Dundee Day every year, and we are wanting to get our SDL to go until midnight with the music going until midnight.
Great, thank you. And then just your name and address for the record, too?
Oh, sorry. Stacia Paquette, 3820 Birch Street, Omaha, Nebraska, 68131.
All right, thank you. Any other proponents that want to speak today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Second.
There's a motion to approve and a second. Roll call.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Hug. Mr. President.
Abstain.
Motion passed 6-0. Festerson abstains.
Thank you.
Items 8 and 9 can be considered together for Military 180 Crossing located northeast of 180th Street and Military Road. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Item 8, a resolution to approve the preliminary plat. Item 9, a resolution to approve the request for a waiver to the present development zone boundary of the urban development element of the city's master plan.
Public hearing and vote on items 8 and 9 are today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon. I'm Lana Bayless with DLR Group representing Bennington Public Schools.
6457 Francis Street, Omaha, Nebraska 68106. They're looking to do a preliminary plat and approval of the current development zone for a parcel of land that's almost 75 acres northeast of 180th and Military Road. Future plans for one of the lots that we are platting is for a future high school for Bennington Public Schools. And I'm here for any questions should you have any.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Move the approval.
There's a motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Johnson. Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Hug. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Item 10, a resolution to approve the preliminary plat for Briggs Place, replat 12, located southwest of 41st and Farnham Streets. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 10 is today. Proponents, please.
No more sign-in. Aaron Weezy with Olson, 211 South 67th Street, Suite 200, 68106. So we've been coordinating with Planning and Public Works on this project. It's a reconfigure of the jug handle that's currently looping around the bank. Well, the bank has now been demolished, but reconfiguring the roadway of Harney Street and just set up the corridor for the long-term city's plan and future development of the Med Center.
Okay, thank you. Any other proponents that want to speak today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Motion and second to approve. Roll call.
Johnson. Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Hug. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Thanks.
Items 11 through 13 can be considered together for Fountain Ridge East, located north of 188th and Burke Streets. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Item 11, an ordinance to rezone this property from AG District to MU District. Item 12, an ordinance to approve a major amendment to a mixed-use district development agreement for this property. Item 13, a resolution to approve the final plat.
Public hearing and vote on items 11, 12, and 13 are today. Proponents, please.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of council. Martin Pelster, 2120 South 72nd Street, suite number 1200 on behalf of the applicant. Also have with me Kyle Haas from ENA Consulting Group. We're here to answer any questions. This is a final plat and amendment to a mixed use development agreement for the Fountain Ridge area.
Okay, thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Second.
There's a motion to approve in a second. Roll call.
Johnson. Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Hug. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 14, a resolution to approve the North 38th Avenue City Home Project Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Project Plan in an amount up to $198,382.
Public hearing and vote on number 14 is today. Proponents, please.
Moment here. Yeah, good afternoon, Don Seaton, Omaha City Planning Department. This is an affordable housing development proposed by Holy Name Housing. It's comprised of 4 single-family homes on 4 vacant single-family lots in a North Omaha neighborhood. That's along North 38th Avenue, just south of Lake Street. These are 4 lots that have been long neglected and abandoned and overgrown prior to Holy Name acquiring them. So this is be a good infill housing project. These will be rental homes for income qualified households earning 80% or less of the area median income. I would note that the city is also providing some home funds for the construction of this project. So in that regard, the city is kind of a partner in the program. The development is located in an extremely blighted area, so it'll be a 20-year TIF term. Total project cost is about $1.1 million. The TIF support for the project is $198,382. This is an appropriate land use for the area. It complies with the city's master plan. It's been approved by the city TIF committee and the planning board. This will help strengthen the neighborhood, and we ask for your approval. Here's what the houses look like. attached garage. I believe they're all 4-bedroom. Thank you.
Thank you. Other proponents?
Matthew Kavanaugh, Holy Name Housing Corporation, 4324 Fort Street. Don did a great job of describing that, so I don't have much to say. They are 4 bedrooms homes. So we are just seeking TIF funds help with the site preparation for these infill lots to pair with the city home funds. Thank you to city planning being flexible both on what's sort of an untraditionally small TIF project size and also on being flexible on finding a proper use for these home funds. So appreciate their working with us in both those aspects. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thanks for your work, too.
Thank you.
Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearings, oh, sorry.
Larry Storer, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha 68132. In general, I'm against TIF, and particularly this one. I've been reading through all the documents. There's some questions that I can't find answers to that I'd like to maybe have you people ask and get answers to. Such as, I guess, first of all, I don't get it how with rental units, how this improves the tax base when the renters do not pay the property tax. What tax base are they talking about? Maybe the property tax of the people that live in the area will get higher property assessments because of this development. Is that what TIF does? Like an answer to that. The developer is a developer tax exempt. And I guess he pays the lower value that's been probably zeroed out for 20 years maybe before he starts paying a higher property tax assessed value if he's still in town, or who does pay that. I guess my time's about up, so I'll limit it to that, but there's just a lot of questions about TIF that just aren't clear to the people. And this says that the project may be started on June 25th. Final question would be, why do we start projects before you have the vote on them? And it looks like when you get into the paperwork that you have the planning department decides all these things beforehand. It's cut and dried before it even gets here. So why do we need to spend money having the council have a vote on it if it's a cut and dried issue? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other opponents to number 14? Seeing none, public hearings closed. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Hi, how are you today? I have no doubt of your organization's ability to provide housing in the Omaha area. I just have a few questions for purposes of constituents and, more importantly, the Omaha residents in terms of what we're doing here. Don indicated that your rental costs would be about 80% AMI. Can you expand on that? What does that look like?
Yeah, so under the City Home Fund program, which is the additional subsidy in this project, these are permanent rentals for 20 years, and their income restricted to families at 80% of the AMI of the area median income. So for these 4-bedroom units, that there's a calculation depend on the family size. And as you see in the TIF packet, the estimated, pretty much the maximum rent we would be able to command for that would be, I think it's just over $1,200 a month for for a 4-bedroom unit at that income level. So we won't necessarily charge that. We'll see as we get these units brought on, see what really what we think we could, what would be appropriate for that neighborhood, what we'll be able to command for those units.
So what might be a minimum amount?
Probably $1,000 would be the minimum rent we would charge.
Okay.
Pretty typical. We have, as you know, we have several other single-family homes for rent in that neighborhood, all under different programs, kind of ranging from the 60% to the 120% AMI. And so they kind of are in that range from down to about $1,000 a month and up from there.
Now, we did have an opponent that asked the question about, has this project already started?
Yeah, that was a good question. That was probably, this is a long process, as you know, so that was probably some optimism in my part when the application started. So we are ready to go. We do have our financing all lined up and our team, our construction team ready to go as soon as we get final approval, but we don't move forward with construction until the project is greenlit by the council. So by no means do we expect or assume this is a predetermined outcome. If the council sees fit to deny this application, then we would go back to the drawing board and figure out a new funding source for this project. But so we haven't broken any ground or done anything with these projects quite yet. But we fully intend to develop something on the site, and as soon as we get council approval, we will break ground and go full speed ahead.
And do you know who the general contractor is going to be on
Yes,
this?
so as with most projects, we general contract ourselves.
Okay.
And so, yeah.
Good. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harding.
Matthew, you can stay there or
Yes,
not.
yes,
but,
sure.
I just wanted to pick up a little bit of what you just said too, because I know it's been asked in the past, and it's really developers' risk. If you, as you said, you had some optimism being approved at planning board and working with the planning department and going through the TIF application, all indications are maybe it's going that way. If it doesn't go that way at this level, then that's at your risk. So I just want to make sure that people understand that sometimes if they do see a project that has started, or at least to some degree has wheels in motion, that's again at developer's risk. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to make that clarification.
Yeah. It's pretty hard to get to this point with a feasible project without investing quite a bit of time and planning and cost. So yeah, there's certainly, sequencing is a challenge, so you do have to take quite a bit of risk by the time you get to this point.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking the risk. Good luck with the project.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's no further lights. Is there a motion? It's a motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Johnson. Melton. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Hug. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Consent agenda. Any member of the city council may cause any item placed on the consent agenda to be removed. Items removed from the consent agenda shall be taken up by the city council immediately following the consent agenda in the order in which they were removed, unless otherwise provided by the city council rules of order.
The public hearings on agenda items 15 through 18 were held on July 30th. I don't see any further lights. Is there a motion? It's a motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Johnson. Melton. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Hug. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
The public hearings on agenda items 19 through 23 are today. If you wish to address the city council regarding these items, please come to the microphone, indicate the agenda item number you wish to address, identify yourself by name, address, and who you represent, and if you are a proponent or an opponent. These are items 19 through 23.
Hello, I am here for item number 19. I am Grace Blake. I'm the general manager of Buffalo Wild Wings, 205 North 76th Street in Omaha, Nebraska, 68114. I'm here for any questions.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Any other testifiers? Seeing none, public hearings are closed.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Johnson. Melton. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Hug. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 24, an ordinance to amend Section 2.05 of the Home Rule Charter to amend Article 2 to provide for situations for forfeiture of office of City Council. A is communications in opposition. B is an amendment of the whole requested by the Law Department.
The public hearing on this item was last week. The vote on this item is today. I'll note there is an amendment of the whole. Ms. Melton, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Yeah, I just wanted to call attention. Sometimes I like to kind of go through how we do things. We have the public hearing, we listen to the public, and as a result of that public hearing, we made some amendments, and the amendments are as followed. We are going to make an exception in regards to if a council member moves out of their district, they forfeit their seat, which really makes sense. I think if I move to Papillion, I probably shouldn't be on the Omaha City Council. But we want to make an exception for if it's due to redistricting. That's not going to cause you to not be the council member anymore. So we have if it's due to redistricting, that's an exception to the rule. You can still remain a council member for that area. The second amendment was instead of it taking 5 votes to remove a council member, it'll be 6 votes. So you really have to have the entire council, other than the person that potentially is up for the removal. So it would basically take 6 votes in order to do so, more than a super majority. And the third thing is we thought it would be important because it sounded to me like from the comments that we received, people thought if you just don't like a council member, or if somebody's calling somebody a rude name, or that you could remove them from council, and that is not the case. What we did here is we added specifically what those things would be in order to be serious enough for purposes of removal. Those things include sexual harassment. If you're violating somebody's civil rights, engaging in racial discrimination, if you're engaging in acts of violence, then against, and by the way, this is against city employees. I think what I'd like to clarify is the city employees that work for the city council office and work for the city clerk's office, they aren't union, they aren't part of the union, they are employees. Currently, city council members do not have to follow HR policy. There is nothing that requires us to follow HR policy. In fact, once elected, and quite to my surprise, we kind of got into this when a former council member was charged last year. I don't need to go into that, but this has to do, and this started with the District 4 council member and the behaviors that he engaged in. And people were complaining, why do we still have that council member on the council? Why aren't you doing anything about it? Because we don't have representation, and you need to do something. Well, we couldn't. We discovered this. We then discovered our employees in these 2 offices, and I wasn't aware actually that they weren't part of any one of the 5 unions of our city. That currently they aren't protected from city council members, from our behaviors. Without any kind of code or conduct or anything, I could literally sexually harass any one of my employees. I could discriminate against Eliza or Sherry or Kimberly or Sarah or Liz or Maggie or Steve or Carmen or Jim. They are the people that we're looking to pass this code of conduct for. They are the people that come in here every day, that work every day on behalf of the citizens of Omaha. And no matter what any of us council members do, technically as their bosses, we have no repercussions, none whatsoever. In fact, at this point, I actually think our HR department should require anybody that gets hired onto the city council staff or in the city clerk's office to sign a form that they acknowledge they do not have the same protections as other employees in the city of Omaha. Quite frankly, they don't have the same protections as anybody else in any of the other businesses that we all work in. Their bosses, who are elected, can actually sexually harass them. They can use racial slurs. They can otherwise engage in behavior towards them that they themselves would get fired or reprimanded for, but not in the city council or the city clerk's office. Because this city council has no code of conduct that we're expected to follow. I would think anybody, any citizen of Omaha, would want to make sure that just because you're elected to office doesn't give you a free pass to treat others in egregious manners. And we all know what that means. And by the way, there's plenty of due process here. If there's a council member engaging in that kind of egregious behavior, they will have the opportunity to present their cause. So what I'm asking for is just, and the majority of this code of conduct is, if you're doing things that maybe aren't right, we have a way of addressing it. It could be privately, it could be in a closed session, it might rise to the level of maybe having a public censure. Everybody kind of focused on removal. And by the way, if there are any council members that are currently engaging in this activity, it's not retroactive. So you won't be removed if you simply just stop the behavior. I think moving forward, I think it's very, very important that we have a policy in place so that we are held to the same standard as our employees. That we're held to the same standard as judges. I mean, if judges are doing this, you can file a complaint. The Supreme Court actually has ways to reprimand, suspend, and remove lawyers, judges. Anybody that has a job, I think, is held to some kind of HR policy in which you could be reprimanded, disciplined, or fired. And the fact that we actually, as an Omaha City Council, have no rules whatsoever, and to say we get to act however we want, and then it'll be up to the people in our district to just not elect us in 4 years, well, I'm fairly certain if a council member is engaging in some of that behavior, their constituents may not know that. But I'm also very certain that when constituents vote for somebody, they're voting for them because they're expecting them to conduct themselves just like normal people, just as though they're in any other job. And I don't think they're electing them to give them the ability to sexually harass, racially discriminate, or create an environment that's so hostile. Right now, literally, a council member could commit a misdemeanor, be convicted of it against one of our city employees. I literally could punch one of our employees, be convicted of it, and still show up the next week at council. And as egregious as all of my colleagues here think it would be, they don't have any way to even reprimand me for it. I think that's wrong. I don't think that this code of conduct is going to be used because you don't like somebody. It'd take 6 votes to remove. This is to actually say to our employees, we do care about you. And if you aren't being treated correctly, the council does have a way to at least reprimand, and it may be privately. But I think I had some people say, well, you know what, you should engage in mediation. No HR department would ever tell the victim of sexual harassment that they need to go mediate with the perpetrator. That's ridiculous. Now, if city council members, if we're having problems with each other, I agree. We're elected officials. We can mediate, we can sit down. However, I think if I'm treating somebody that egregiously, if I engage in violence against a council member, sexually harass a council member, I think I should be held to that same standard by my colleagues. So I think most people think we actually have a code in place. Everybody I talked to was surprised we didn't. So we spent a lot of time, we looked at other cities, other councils. I mean, La Vista's had a code of conduct for their city council for over 20 years. You don't see it used politically. And again, I believe this council, and pursuant to the code of conduct, any council member that has any allegations alleged against them has every right and ability to defend themselves. There's an investigation that we can have HR, the law department, get the facts, do the investigation, and figure out what has actually happened and whether it rises to the level that's addressed here. So I think we defined what egregious behavior is. And anyone that thinks that this is about one particular person, no, this is about our city, and this is about our city employees, not council members. And we need to send that message to our employees that we do care. And I want to make sure that we don't have to let the next employee we hire know that they can be subject to all of this by any one of us elected officials, and nothing will happen to the elected official. And that's what you're signing up for when you work in the city council office and the clerk's office. Who knew? So, is the behavior going on right now? No idea. Don't wait for it to happen. We need to be proactive. I want to make sure that our city employees are protected. And I want them to know that we care and that we will protect them from any future councils that may engage in that behavior against them. They deserve it. So that's what precipitated this, and I think our clarifications as a result of last week's public hearing, which I think was very good, and it sounded to me like we probably needed to define that removal piece a little better so people knew exactly what we were referring to. And then increasing the number of votes for something very extreme, I think was important too. So it would take 6 votes. So I think that provides the protection that anybody had, that if they had any question or worries, I think this provides those protections for any accused member of the city council for the code of conduct. I have nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think it's important for everyone to know what the amendment entails so that we're not piecemealing what we're talking about here. So in this code of conduct, we are talking about discrimination with no definition. There is no information below discrimination. We have nepotism, again, with no definition, no additional information, examples, etc., to expand upon that word only on the basis of the word itself. Receiving or providing personal gifts or favors where the council member knows or should have known the intention to influence an official action. There is no personal gift. Let's define personal gifts. It's personal gift. When we have our budget, oftentimes we are given a gift from the Visitors Bureau, a cup. Is that a gift? I'm not sure. Use or disclosure of confidential information. Nothing below that in this conversation piece other than a label, other than a title, other than a subcategory that is being stated here as to what we are talking about. That leaves that up in the air for interpretation. Intentionally make false statement on which the council, city staff, or other agency relied to establish policy or vote. Once again, it's very important that constituents recognize that we have a separation of city council and the city. Oftentimes, the city is engaged in making deals, and many times a city council member is not aware of what deals have been made. Will we then, and then a city council member says to a constituent who inquires about something, and they say what they think may be what's going on, which they should have the opportunity to answer constituents. Are we going to view that as being untruthful? Again, a lot of interpretations going on here.
So, Ms. Johnson, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to make sure we're talking about the correct items, right? This is item number 24, which does refer to a code of conduct, but I think the details you're speaking to are the next item. Is that correct?
Unfortunately, whoever made the maker of item number 24, they put code of conduct in there.
Okay.
And so if we wanted to deal with this separately, Might it have been a better idea to separate them? So unfortunately, I have to address code of conduct here for the viewers, for the readers, the whole 9 yards, because it's not clear where we begin and where we end.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Separation of that specifically.
Madam Clerk, I believe the light had introduced me to be the
And
speaker
bringing
at
us a
this
point of
time.
order, which is within my right.
There has been a call to a point of order, Madam Clerk. I believe we are leaning into the next item, which has these details, and I would encourage folks to save those remarks for that item, but I will also acknowledge there's a relationship because this number 24 does mention code of conduct and anticipates one being adopted. So I'm not going to call the speaker out of order, but I would encourage those details to be addressed in the next item as opposed to this one.
Mr. President, I don't plan on revisiting these items again in number 25. I prefer to deal with them now, and I was already midstream dealing with them. If we want me to stop now, I'd be more than happy to and start all over from the beginning on item number 25.
I think that'd be more productive to the details you were just speaking to, but you're certainly you still have the floor related to this item, which is the charter amendment, right?
The charter amendment includes code of conduct, and for my constituents, I believe it is relevant for me to explain what code of conduct is, what it entails. Okay. So as I was saying, intentionally make false statements. That's debatable. Acquiring a person, I've already, creating a hostile work environment. Again, no definition, no explanation, none of that is provided here. It's interpreted as to what we're talking about here. Retaliation against city employees. Again, no other information is provided. Failure to disclose a conflict of interest, no additional details is provided. Violation of local, state, or federal law, no additional information has been provided. Violation of the Nebraska Political Accountability and Disclosure Act, no additional information has been provided as well. A council member shall represent that any stated opinion in their own word does not represent the opinion of the city council unless the council has adopted an ordinance or resolution that states the expressed policy. No additional information provided here. All motions, resolutions, and other actions shall be consistent with the city council rules. No additional information is provided here. A council member shall not divulge the contents of discussion held or any material provided in executive session without any outside third party. Again, no additional information provided. While I think it is admirable that we protect our city council, our city employees, I also think it's important to protect city council members as well. And what I mean by that is a city council member can, all of these things that we just addressed can be done by a city employee to a city council member, and there is nothing that that city council member can do other than contact the mayor for her to reprimand. Who is protecting the city council member? Why is it necessary for a city council member to get their own attorney when our budget says that the current city council, the current city attorney represents the entire city, which includes city council members? Where do we meet in the middle of the road when the city attorney has to decide whether he's going to defend a department versus a city council member? Is it fair for a city council member to have to acquire their own attorney? Again, I say it's very admirable that we want to protect city employees, but who is protecting the city council member when these same items, A through I, a city employee does to a city council member? Who protects the city council member? If we need to protect, we need to equally protect not only the employees, but the city council members as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hug, you're recognized.
25 years ago doesn't seem like a long time to me, but 25 years ago when I took over as chair of the board for Metropolitan Community College, one of the first tasks I did was to pass an ethics policy. It wasn't easy. It was a lot of hard work. So to the committee that put this together and developed it, thank you for your hard work and effort. I do have some mixed opinions about portions of this. I am going to support it because I believe in supporting the hard work of my fellow board members. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harding, you're recognized.
Thank you. I'll address specifically in more detail my thoughts on the code of conduct when we get to the next item, but just a couple items as it relates to this, this action. Last week we heard from the public that we needed some more definition as to what might rise to the occasion of removal from office, as it shouldn't be just for kind of any reason. We wanted to make sure that it rose to a level that it was so egregious that 6 people on this council or a future council could agree that maybe that would be the nuclear test or the nuclear event, if you will. And so we've added that definition in an 8.03. The other thing I just wanted to add on to what Councilmember Melton said about, protecting it's for, city staff, for the city council staff and the clerk's office, but it also is applicable to the rest of the city employees, whether they be in the planning department or public works or parks. It's citywide. So we want to make sure that's clear, that it's for everyone. And I'll have more to say then on the code of conduct when we get to the next item.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
To better understand the potential implications and benefits of establishing a code of conduct, it would be helpful to review examples from other cities that have implemented similar measures. Specifically, I would like to know why these cities decided to adopt a code of conduct, what specific issues they aim to address, and how successful these measures have been in improving governance and ethical standards. Additionally, sharing templates or copies of code of conducts from these cities would have been invaluable in guiding our own efforts. While the goal of establishing a code of conduct is commendable, it is important to consider any potential harms or unintended consequences that might arise. For example, overly stringent or ambiguous rules could hinder the ability of council members to perform their duties effectively or could be used as tools for political maneuvering. Furthermore, it is essential to ensure that any code of conduct respects the rights and responsibilities of council members and does not unduly limit their ability to represent their constituents. In conclusion, I am committed to promoting transparency, accountability, and ethical behavior within our city government. However, it is vital that the process for establishing a code of conduct be inclusive, well-informed, and considerate of all potential impacts. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Ms. Melton.
I just wanted to clarify something, that if any employee engages in that behavior against council members, they are subject to reprimand and termination. The employees in our council office, actually every city employee other than the elected officials, is subject to all of these rules. They can be reprimanded or fired if they were to engage in those behaviors against the elected officials. So it's not two-way. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear, that the employees can be reprimanded or fired by our HR department or their supervisors or elected officials.
Thank you. Mr. Begley.
Thanks, Mr. President. Mr. Kuzi, I have a couple questions for you on the amendment of the whole thing.
Matt Kuzi, Law Department.
Mr. Kuzi, can you define what in number 8 of the amendment of the whole, where it says severe and pervasive mistreatment of city staff? Can you please define that, what that means?
Sure. Those are legally significant words that were chosen by the Law Department when this amendment was requested. And really, they're just adjectives to describe the mistreatment. I note that it has the word and, not or, so both would have to be present. And they're both commonly understood and regularly used words. Severe, everyone should know what severe means. When we have severe weather, we know what that means when there's a severe weather warning. Severe means very bad. Pervasive means constant, repeatedly, ongoing. So both of those two elements would have to be present in order to constitute that level of mistreatment of city staff to warrant a possible expulsion from the council. So they're just common adjectives that are normally understood with many synonyms to describe them.
Thank you. So it's fair to say that should this pass and somebody experiences that, these terms have legal significance. Is that fair to say for somebody that's not a lawyer?
Yes, they have legal significance both in our court system and within the NEOC, EEOC process.
Okay, and the part where we put conviction of a crime of violence, I think we all understand what that means, but could you elaborate on what that entails?
Sure. The current charter already has language about being convicted of a felony or any crime involving a violation of the official oath. The additional language of conviction of a crime of violence there are multiple misdemeanors out there that are crimes of violence, whereby violence, again commonly understood, where someone is harmed, whether that be a misdemeanor assault, a domestic assault, a misdemeanor sexual assault. Those are 3 examples of crimes of violence that could warrant a council member being expelled from office if convicted of those types of offenses.
Okay, and the other point, there's 2 others, but racial or sexual discrimination. I think we all know what that means, but if you could elaborate, please, on that, the legal definitions of that.
Sure. When we're talking about discrimination, we're talking about treating someone differently. Again, a commonly used term that doesn't warrant any definition because it's commonly understood by people what discrimination means, including the terms racial or sexual discrimination. As Ms. Melton indicated in her remarks, sexual harassment is a form of sexual discrimination, whereby the old quid pro quo analogy that's often made when discussing sexual harassment, racial discrimination, treating someone differently in a possible adverse employment action based on someone's race. So again, those terms have very common and understood meanings.
Thanks for that. And the last one, I think, again, self-explanatory, acquiring a personal financial interest in a contract or transaction under consideration by the city. I guess I'll tee that up for you just so we understand what that is.
If the council is considering a contract for, let's just do snow removal. For snow removal, none of the council members can have some sort of financial interest in that company, or a contract that's being considered, work out some deal, I'll vote for your contract if you clear the snow at my business or at my home for free.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Kuzi. Thanks, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. Rowe.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to see how much I appreciated Councilmember Melton's explanation. Appreciate that. And I tend to agree with Mr. Harding. I think we're jumping from one ordinance to another. This ordinance on item number 24 has to do with a charter amendment that would go to the vote of the people. And item number 25 is where we're going to discuss an option of a code of ethics or a code of conduct. So I just want to make sure that the conversation that we're having on number 24 doesn't jump to item number 25. I think it's important that we do allow our electorate to make this decision, and if they feel like it's something that we need, it'll be on the ballot. If we vote yes, if we vote no, then it'll just be business as usual, I guess. So I just want to make sure that we're not jumping from one ordinance back to another and getting confused on what we're actually voting for in item number 24.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson.
Item number 24, very clear on what we're talking about here. However, code of conduct is still being used. So with that being in the ordinance, I will not be able to support this ordinance because that word is being used. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harding.
To piggyback on Councilmember Rowe's comments, and that's a really, really important point because, and I brought this up last week as well too. What we're voting on in this item is whether or not there is to go to the vote of the people, a vote of the people, a change in our charter, and it spells out what those changes are, and it does mention the code of conduct. It does not say specifically what code of conduct. The code of conduct that we will consider next might be that code of conduct. That code of conduct, if it doesn't pass, it can still be in the charter amendment that would have a code of conduct that could be a consideration for removal from office. That code of conduct could be, if we adopt this one today, the next item, that could be amended in the future. If we don't approve the code of conduct that we are next going to consider, it can still go to the vote of the people and have a code of conduct in there that could be adopted at a future point in time by this council or any other council. So that's why I was trying to make the point of order that what we're considering here is one thing, and the specifics of the code of conduct are the next item. So with that, I will move for approval of this item.
Second.
Is that the amendment of the whole?
Second.
There's a motion, a second on the amendment of the whole. Ms. Johnson.
I will say again, based upon different backgrounds and different walks of life, this code of conduct that has been inserted in here, I am not able to separate one from the other, and I find it very offensive to suggest that I'm not able to understand A and B. Why is my opinion regarding this less valuable than any other member on this city council? We all hold the same level of responsibility as voted officials. And I want it to be very clear that I understand what is before me. Find it offensive to think that I don't understand when I do. It's not necessary to continue to say that I'm perhaps looking at this incorrectly. Again, you don't walk a mile in my sneakers. That's your opinion. I've clearly stated my opinion, which is why this code of conduct needs some more vetting. More eyes looked at it because of these differences. So because it is stated in the ordinance, I will have to vote against it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harding.
One can vote for or against this for whatever reason they may determine in their own heart and soul. I just want to point out that we are not voting on a specific code of conduct in this item. We are voting on a code of conduct, or potentially voting on a code of conduct in the next item. That item could be amended on the floor. It could change today. It could change in the future. We are not voting on a specific code of conduct in this ordinance in front of us right now.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson.
Mr. Kuzi, a few minutes ago, Mr. Bagley asked you to explain misconduct, a grease-up. And you explained that that was saying something over and over and over again. It's not necessary for me to continue to get beat upside the head about my interpretation of this code of conduct being inserted in this ordinance. It's not necessary. And as I asked earlier, and this question is for you, Mr. Kuzi, who protects the city council member when a city employee or a city council member continues to violate one of these items, to include discrimination? Who protects me, Mr. Kuzi?
Matt Kuzi, City of Omaha Law Department. As elected officials, you are to govern yourselves amongst yourselves, deal with things amongst yourselves. You are not city employees. You are elected city officials. You don't fall in the same category as the other city employees do that have been referenced during the hearing on this matter. You are correct that it is the job of the law department to represent council members when they are sued. If there was a lawsuit filed, the city law department represents you and others of the council who might get sued in lawsuits such as that. That's the duty of the law department, is to represent the city and the officials when there is legal action taken against them.
And I'm sorry, but I have to ask this question again. When a city employee discriminates against a city council member, who protects the city council member?
Matt Kuzi Law Department, if you believe or any council member believes that such an action has occurred, there are established policies and procedures within the city where you can make such a complaint, usually to the Human Resources Department, where it can be investigated and action can be taken if the investigation is found to have credible evidence that something had happened.
Thank you very much.
So I support this charter amendment today. I think it has three parts. It does have three parts. I definitely support section 2.053, which is the district component we've talked about. That was a recommendation by the Charter Convention. To me, it's very self-explanatory that if you aren't living in your district, you shouldn't be representing that district. And we've now accounted for the potential of redistricting to impact that in the amendment of the whole. I think that satisfactorily addresses that issue. I do support section 2.055. I do think 3 months of unexcused absences for a council member is too long. I think we experienced that with the District 4 situation that we had. I think 4 consecutive weeks is much better, and that certainly would have been more responsive to the calls we were getting from South Omaha constituents at the time, as an example. And as I mentioned last week, we do still, this does not change the provision in city charter that allows for 6 months of excused absences. That may be someone's health concern or other things that can be excused and should be excused without taking action. And we have had that occur before, not too long ago, with a city council member in District 7. Section 2.058, I'll acknowledge, makes me uncomfortable. I'm not at all critical of the committee's work. I am uncomfortable with legislating behaviors, but perhaps this is a sign of the times and the political discourse that we seem to be experiencing throughout the country. And I do think 24B, the amendment of the whole, does improve that. It clarifies only the most serious offenses, and it increases that threshold to a unanimous vote of council members. That's a very high threshold. There was comments last week and in some of our correspondence on this issue. You know, are these three matters three different issues? Should these be three different ballot issues? I have talked with the city attorney about that. It could be. They do all amend the same section, so it's not inappropriate they're in the same section or same ballot measure, but this could be all considered separately on the ballot should we choose to do that. That would take an amendment that I don't think council members are interested in at this point, but I wanted to let folks know I asked that question, and that is the answer to that question. Having said that, and with the motion and the second on the amendment of the whole, I too am willing to place this on the ballot for voters to decide. That's who ultimately will decide this matter. There's no further lights. There's a motion and a second to approve the amendment of the whole. Roll call.
Johnson?
No.
Melton?
Yes.
Rowe?
Yes.
Bagley?
Aye.
Harding?
Yes.
Hug?
Yes.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Motion passed 6-1. Item 25, an ordinance to amend Chapter 2, Article 2, Division 1 of the Omaha Municipal Code entitled Generally by adding Section 2-25 to provide for a code of conduct, A's communications in opposition.
Similarly, the public hearing on this item was already held last week. This is the vote on item number 25. Ms. Milton, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you. I'm not going to repeat what I said in regards to 24 when I was addressing the removal, because I just addressed like the most egregious things. And that's what was part of 24, but part of 25 also includes things that would be less than removal, where city council members could still treat staff inappropriately. It may not rise to the level of severe behavior that we talked about for purposes of removal. But again, our city employees, as Councilman Harding stated, all city employees deserve to be treated and respected. And I think a lot of this code of conduct is common sense. It's what we should be doing. It's what the public holds us to. And that's what this code of conduct does. So in addition to what I talked about for purposes of removal, it also gives city employees the ability to file complaint with HR against a council member, have an investigation, and then allow the city council to maybe take care of it and reprimand each other. We could censure. We could, again, we could do this behind closed doors. We can actually have an executive session if there was an HR issue with one of our employees that would allow us to call an executive session and have that discussion with the council member that may be engaging in that behavior. But I think what it does is it says to elected officials, you know, you don't get to do just whatever you want. You can be reprimanded by your colleagues, by a censure, or by maybe anything else that the colleagues may vote on, up to removal for the most egregious things. And we owe that to our city employees. Again, what protection do I have from city employees? If any city employee is calling me names, is harassing me, is doing anything, I can go complain to HR. I can actually ask that employee be reprimanded and or that employee fired. We sit as an elected body as basically the bosses of the employees in our office.
So yes, the employee can be reprimanded for anything they do to me, yet I can't be. It's not reciprocal. It's not fair. It's not equal. And I don't think it's what anybody would want to see. Employees who are in unions have union reps they can go to help enforce their rights. The specific employees in our office, I think all but 2, they don't have that.
So basically, those employees are treated unfairly. And again, without this code of conduct, I do believe HR should have all of our employees actually sign an acknowledgement form that they don't have the same protections as other employees in the city of Omaha. And I think that would be a shame. I think we need a code of conduct that at least spells out some of the ethical things that, as an elected official and in this role, which is very important, that we need to follow. And yes, again, I think it should be common sense. But unfortunately, there are some elected officials that could, in the future, take advantage of that and not follow that. And that's what I'm trying to do here. And this is about the employees, not the elected officials. We have plenty of outlets if we have any issues with people. And by the way, if an elected official has a problem with another elected official under this code of conduct, they could make the same complaint. And one of us could be reprimanded for the treatment of another council member, not removal. Removal was just for the things that I talked about earlier that I'm not going to repeat. We could have a censure. We could have the other council members say, you know what, no committee meetings for you for a month, or something of that nature. But there would at least be some repercussions, and I think it would provide our employees at least with the assurance that, number one, we do care about them, and number two, we are going to address any issues that they may have when they're being treated unfairly. And it also says to other elected officials, if you feel like you're being treated unfairly, you now have an outlet and a way to complain and have another council member reprimanded if you're not being treated fairly. These are not removal things, again, other than for what we talked about. But I think this also protects the elected officials as well. But at least we're all being protected equally once this passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harding.
Okay, I'm going to go a little bit against myself because I'm going to refer back to the last item we voted on for a minute, just to make sure we're all clear. There are provisions in the current charter that address how council members can be removed from office. That what we did in that last action does not remove or override or eliminate that provision. It just adds to it. So I just wanted to make that clear for the record. So I also want to address the elephant in the room. This proposed code of conduct is not aimed at anyone. It's not targeted at anyone. And everyone who is serving on this council today, and anyone who has the privilege to serve the citizens of the Omaha on this body going forward, would be held to the same code of conduct that is either adopted today or not adopted today, but in a future time or amended at a future time. We will all be held to those same standards. So there are a number of issues that were both raised last week and in emails and calls this week too, was about voter suppression or taking away the voters' rights. As I just mentioned a minute ago, we currently have in our charter provisions or ways for someone that can be removed from the city council. And it's kind of interesting when I started thinking back about that a little bit, is that we really first saw the shortcomings of what the charter says today about 6 years ago. Maybe it was 5 or 6 years ago. And that was when the former representative from District 4 was found guilty of tax charges. At the time that they were originally filed, they were to be felonies. And a council member, if found guilty of a felony, can be removed from the city council. But that, the representative from District 4 hired James Martin Davis, God rest his soul, who was able to convince the court to knock those down to misdemeanors. And he pled guilty to misdemeanor charges. And a misdemeanor is not one of the reasons you can be removed from the city council. So we saw the shortcomings of it there. So I think it's important that we take that look back, because then we saw what happened last year. And as Council President Festerson said a moment ago, that when the council member from District 4 was sitting in jail and unable to attend council meetings for a period of 3 months, I might add, sitting in jail, collecting a city check and enjoying the health benefits of the city, that's too long. So we want to make sure that we address that issue too. And so as it relates to voter suppression or taking away the citizens' right to duly elect their officials, there currently are provisions to remove. We are just amending that section of the charter to have other means, or amend the means that currently exist. It was interesting too that, as Councilmember Melton had earlier stated, is that if some of those violations occur today, we're not held to any standard, and we should be held to a higher standard, in my estimation. But we could be guilty of some of those actions and come back the next week and sit here and make decisions on, how the city is spending money or how the city is awarding contracts. And I don't think that that's right. So again, I think it's important that we adopt this code of conduct. I find it interesting too that I got an email from someone who is against the code of conduct, and they said, in part, shouldn't we treat others in the manner in which you would like to be treated? Totally agree. And that's what this code of conduct really does. It just codifies the fact that we should treat others the way we expect to be treated. So I want to make sure I get through my notes here. It's important to note too, and this was why we had further definition in this code of conduct as to we didn't think it was right that someone could make an allegation and try to remove someone from the council for something that doesn't rise to that occasion. And that is why, in hearing what some of the people were saying, and that amendment of the whole that was produced for the last item, that is why we took that to say that, okay, here are the most egregious actions that can remove someone from council. Because what we heard last week was a lot of testimony that jumped the shark, that said, oh, we're going to adopt a code of conduct, you're going to eliminate someone from the city council. There are progressions as to penalties or actions that can be taken prior to getting to that point in time, or that most egregious action that might consider a removal from the council. So I wanted to make sure that we understood that we didn't just take this as we're looking at for something to remove someone. We wanted to make sure that there was a progression as to ways to address or ways to implement a penalty or not, as depending on what the action was that was being considered. Again, the citizens expect and should hold us to a higher standard of conduct when performing the city's business. And that's whether we're sitting here today or in public, I believe. So I think it's important that we codify this and add it to one of the reasons that one could be disciplined at some level, or again, in those most egregious situations, removal from office.
Thank you. Mr. Rowe.
Thank you, sir. There are times when I'm I'm here contemplating an ordinance, trying to decide, do I want to vote yes or do I want to vote no? And there are times when I make it too complicated. You know, I work through all these different scenarios and I wonder what am I really voting on? And on this, what I came to after listening to testimony last week, I received emails from constituents from District 5. I had phone calls. I talked to people about the code of conduct. And honestly, I'm checking my own value system as to what do I believe about this. And what I came to was the bottom line, am I willing to be held accountable for this set of standards? And to me, it's a pretty low bar. I'm going to have a hard time. I would have a very hard time, and I told constituents that I would have a very hard time voting no for this code of conduct and then being able to explain to a constituent, here's why I voted no. I didn't want to be held to this list of principles that I hold dear in my heart. I'm not, am I perfect? Clearly not. When I read the New Testament scripture, the Apostle Paul was one of the most prolific writers of the New Testament. And he said that he was the chief among sinners. So at least I don't have to worry about being number one. There can only be one number one. But am I going to be willing to be held accountable to this? I think I have to say yes. And so I'm going to vote yes, and then be able to tell my constituents, whether they be in District 5 or any district, that yes, you can hold me accountable to this and even more. Am I going to miss the mark? Clearly. I have, do, and I'm sure I will. But I'm going to do my best to live up to the values that I hold important, and these clearly are a part of that. So I appreciate you listening to that.
Thank you. Mr. Hug.
If I say a lot, I'm just going to reiterate what everybody else is saying, so I'll try to keep it as brief as I can. The single reason I'm going to vote for the code of conduct is that I value our city council staff, every one of them. They are dedicated professionals. And I do have concerns that somebody that is not of the character of the 7 of us that are sitting up here today could come in and literally make their life hell, and they would have no recourse. And so I want those employees in our city council office to know that I do value them, and I do value the work that they do. And that's a single reason I'm going to vote for this today. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bagley.
Thanks, Mr. President. We put a lot of time into working on this, the law committee and colleagues and staff, and I know is evident by the conversation we've heard today. I think all of us have talked to constituents, people we trust, staff, and to me this is all about that elected officials on this city council are not above the law. Decency is decency. Whether you're in a public meeting or you're meeting with constituents out in public. And one of my colleagues mentioned the golden rule. My mom and dad taught me that at a young age. You treat others as you want to be treated. And not only did my mom and dad teach me that, they led by it. I saw them how they treated people. I miss them every day, but I try to teach my kids what my parents taught me about that golden rule, that you should respect anybody from any walk of life. In the code of conduct here, if we approve this, it's a statement about what we believe as elected officials. It's our behavior. We're being accountable. We're being transparent. And if we pass this, it's inclusion of the city council staff. I've spent my whole life as a proud union member, a lot of it as a union leader. And when we went through this, as Councilmember Melton and others have said, it was a little shocking that there were no rules in place for city council staff. And I take my city council hat off. We all come from walks of life. I think it's pretty clear, people know that Danny Begley's a union guy, and I will, the rest of my life, that's what I am. That's what is instilled in me, and I'm proud of it. This is about the dignity of workers. I've talked about that before in this chambers. The dignity of the workers. I think there's 12 of them on our council staff. Their dads, their moms, their husbands, their daughters, their sons. I'm going to be gone from this council in the future, but I want future council members that I have had the great honor to be elected here 3 years ago. And this ordinance, if passed, it instills what my beliefs are, the dignity of workers, of respect and having some rules that we live by. And if we don't live by them, then there's consequences and there's due process for this. So I am going to be supporting this today. And I think it's a good step that we show the council staff, it's been laid out pretty good, that there haven't been protections here. And that's something that I am glad to vote to support this, that we fix that today. Thanks, Mr. President.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson.
Mr. President, my response to the adoption of the Code of Conduct, and that's written in this document that I'm handing out, it should be stricken conference to conduct. I am writing to address the proposed adoption of the Code of Conduct, which has raised significant concerns amongst our constituents. The language of the ordinance is notably broad, and we have received numerous letters and testimonies in opposition to this amendment. It is important to highlight that this proposal has not been adequately vetted by our constituents, which is a crucial step in ensuring that the will of the people is accurately represented. The purpose of implementing a code of conduct is to establish clear standards and expectations for behavior, ensuring that all members conduct themselves with integrity, respect, and professionalism. This code serves as a valuable tool in promoting a positive and collaborative environment, fostering trust, and maintaining the public's confidence in our governance. However, if the council decides to move forward with the adoption of this ordinance without proper vetting and constituent input, the only recourse for the opposed would be a legal court challenge. Such a challenge would assert that the will of the people in this matter has not been heard, and that a vote by the people is required for such action to be implemented by this body. It is unconstitutional to violate the will of the voters by silencing or removing a member who has not violated any legal or lawful laws simply because certain members of the body either do not like, care for, or are offended by the members' comments or actions. Thank you for considering the voices and the rights of our constituents in your deliberations. Sincerely, Juanita Johnson, Council Member, District 2. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harding.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve. No further lights. Roll call.
Johnson.
No.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Hug. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-1. Item 26, a resolution to approve a purchase order and facilities waiver with OPPD for installation of streetlights for the South 24th Street BID Lighting Improvement Project.
Public hearing and vote on number 26 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents?
Yes, sir. Donnie R. Johnson, the Johnson Equestrian Foundation, and Northam Hall Concerned Citizen Foundation. To change the subject a little bit, sir, I told my friends who have been helping me grow this beautiful product.
Donnie, you can't.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to Mr. Begley and
You can't
Mr.
have
King.
props at City Council. Are you
Oh, I'm
talking
sorry, let me put
on
that
South
away.
24th Street here?
Yeah,
Okay.
the lights.
Street lights, yep.
Yeah, I told them I'd be here today, and they wanted me to ask Mr. Begley and Mr. Hug, can we get a discount since there's no electricity for the last 2 weeks? I said, I'd be happy because we're trying to get our products grown. We had no power, and they'd be willing to give us a discount on the MUD for the OPPD. So should they have to pay? Because one lady said she ain't had no air conditioning in 2 weeks. So can we get a discount or just a, Mr. Hug will figure it out. Gonna send everybody a voucher, right?
All right. Any other opponents to number 26? Or, yeah, number 26, sorry. Public hearing's closed. There's a motion to approve and a second. Roll call.
Johnson. Melton. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Hug. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Bagley abstains. Item 27, a resolution to approve the purchase order and facilities waiver with OPPD for installation of streetlights for the North 24th Street BID Lighting Improvement Project.
Public hearing and vote on number 27 is today. Proponents, please.
Luis Jimenez, 2709 Dewey Avenue. I'm a proponent for 26 and 27. I just want to say, start off with saying that I am thankful of the support that we're seeing throughout the city of Omaha for getting power back on. I saw the newspaper with the caravan up by the baseball field. And everybody's impacted differently. I've had electricity the whole time. Not once did I lose electricity. And I'm glad because I have a French bulldog that overheats easily. And I don't have to be concerned about it. And I'm able to show up even when there's a crisis. So I don't want to be judged because there's a crisis going on, yet you guys are making decisions and you're asking to have a public hearing. So there's that. But I think this is important development for the North 24th Street, a BID. The BID is going to have different revenue streams, foundational money coming in, and then so this is a very important component where they get tax money, tax dollars being invested in their activities. The lighting is one of the basic components to developing the North 24th Street corridor, and it's quite a big area. So I don't know if this is going to be like, well, hopefully this is a starting point. Like a first phase. Okay, thanks for your time.
Thank you. Other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Is there a motion? Motion is second to approve. Roll call.
Johnson. Melton. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Hug. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Bagley abstains. Item 28, a resolution to approve the bid award in the total amount of $3,689,000 for installation of new tennis courts.
Public hearing and vote on number 28 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents?
I'll take that as a yes. We're gonna get our power, start growing again, right? Indoor growing. You guys familiar with indoor growing, right? Okay, never mind.
This has got to be to number 28, Donnie.
Yes, sir. Donnie R. Johnson, the Johnson Equestrian Foundation, and Northam Hall Concerned Citizen Foundation. If they approve this money for the tennis and we teach them how to beat Serena Williams, can we get more money in Northam Hall? Because I know how to beat her. It's real easy. They taught us tennis. You know, my teacher made me read the whole book of Arthur Ashe to stay out of trouble, and I never figured out yet. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Kalsovich, if you wouldn't mind just giving a short overview of this project. I know it's important to the tennis community. We didn't touch upon it too much this morning.
Matt Kalsovich, Parks and Recreation Director. Yes, this is a focus on the majority of the courts at the facility. This will actually restore 18 courts to post-tension concrete. We actually add a 19th court as part of this project. That's part of the 27 full courts that will then be fully available through use of this facility. We'll also have some fence repair and installation, as well as some drainage work to help prevent any kind of future damage.
Thank you. Mr. Harding, you're recognized.
Thank you. And I wanted to bring this up a little bit too, because I know I've been working with Matt on this, and I think the original plan, Matt, remind me, was maybe to do 3 courts and phase it over time to do the rest of the courts. But in conversations with a lot in the tennis community and the users of this facility, there was, and the mayor's office stepping up to find a way to do this all at once rather than phasing it over years. I appreciate your efforts on it.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson.
Thank you. Matt, could you please provide a list of those tennis courts?
Matt Kalsovich, Parks and Recreation Director. Everything under this action is focused at the Koch Tennis Center. That's our premier outdoor tennis facility, multi-court tennis facility.
Thank you.
And can you speak to timeline too, Matt? When would this start and when would it be completed if approved today?
Yes, Matt Kalsovich, Parks and Recreation Director. Some of the preliminary work leading us up to this point has been taken care of already. Some of the preparation for the full scope of work, planning to have full installation here by the end of the year.
Great. Thank you. Charlotte. Ms. Melton.
Thank you. Yeah, Matt, I do want to thank you for your efforts on this. I know it's been years. I know that some of the tennis folks have been a little frustrated over the last couple years. And I know it's a long time coming. In fact, I think some have said they have to drive all the way to Lincoln, I think, at some point for some of the things that they're doing. I do appreciate that. I think it'll actually be cheaper if we do everything all at once and in phases as well. Isn't that the other thing that we kind of, if you drug it out over time, we'd end up spending more money than if we could just consolidate it all into one project?
That's correct. Matt Kalsovich, Parks and Recreation Director, as Councilmember Harding indicated as well. Originally supposed to be a 3-phase project focusing on 6 courts or 3 banks of courts separately in 3 different projects. So yes, absolutely. Bringing this under one project umbrella will definitely be a cost savings, and to get back to the full function and efficiency of the facility, to have that many courts available for major events, for some events that have had to find another home during this scope of work, is definitely an advantage.
Right, and also you have to pay to play tennis at Koch, so it also generates revenue as well to help pay for the maintenance and everything of the courts.
That's correct. It is an enterprise fund,
Right.
so we do generate revenue there that is part of the long-term maintenance that we're stabilizing now with this work.
Thank you very much. I think that that's very important to add to. So thank you very much. Appreciate your efforts on it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hug.
Matt, are they going to be also painted for pickleball courts?
Matt Kalsovich, Parks and Recreation Director. So this being a dedicated tennis facility, we wouldn't have them dual striped. However, we do have 4 post-tension junior tennis courts that serve as pickleball facilities at this location as well, or pickleball courts at this location. So we do have a pickleball presence, even though that won't be represented on every court.
Real quick to Mr. Hug, there's a chicken and pickle going in across the street, so you can go play pickleball right across the street and enjoy some refreshments and
Chicken
food
and
very soon.
pickle?
It's called Chicken and Pickle. It's a fabulous place. It's coming in right across the street there from Tranquility, so needless to say, we'll have lots of pickleball in the area.
Well, I do like fried chicken.
Okay, no further lights. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion to approve in a second. Roll call.
Johnson. Melton. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Hug. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 29, an ordinance to approve an employee assistance program agreement with CHI Nebraska.
Public hearing on number 29 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon, Deb Sander, City Human Resources, here to answer any questions you might have.
And Kristen Cavill, Benefits Manager, here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed.
Item 30, an ordinance to accept the bid of Abe's Trash Service, Inc. for the Omaha Fire Department.
Public hearing on number 30 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed.
Item 31, an ordinance to approve an interlocal agreement with the Douglas County Sheriff's Office to allow them to issue citations and/or make arrests for violations of the Omaha Municipal Code at certain locations.
Public hearing on number 31 is today. Proponents, please.
Matt Kuzi, City of Omaha Law Department. This ordinance for an agreement is before you at the request of the Sheriff's Office. The Sheriff's Office, by statute, is required to provide security in the courthouses, which includes this building, the Hall of Justice, the Annex building, and by extension, there is a courtroom located at the Douglas County Department of Corrections. The Sheriff's Office has advised that they've seen an increase in outbursts, I guess is the best way to put it, within the courthouse. People upset after sentencings, protection order hearings, juvenile court hearings, custody hearings, divorce proceedings, what have you. And they have asked if they could be allowed to enforce our ordinances, which have better applicability to the situations that the sheriffs are seeing over in these buildings. By law, only the Omaha Police Department can enforce our ordinances unless we execute an interlocal agreement, which we've done here today. I'll be here to answer any of your questions, but I've asked Captain Peterson from the Sheriff's Office to also be here to address this matter also.
Thank you. Captain, any remarks? Since you're here every week, we'll give you a chance to speak.
Christopher Peterson, Captain, Douglas County Sheriff's Office. Yeah, we've had these in the past, and Mr. Kuzi is correct. We've seen an uptick in disturbances in the courthouse, the city-county building, the Justice Center, every place that you see in this agreement. It's just a way for us to fully enforce the law. In the past, where we've had issues, if we're not allowed to enforce these ordinances, then at the end of the day, we have to rely on the Omaha Police Department to come in, give them the information and so forth. By having this, that saves them from doing that if they would even show up just because of their call load and so forth. So this is just a quicker, more efficient way for us to conduct our business. And when we have somebody that's being an issue for us or the courts and so forth, this is just a quicker fashion for us to take action on that.
Thank you. We appreciate you keeping our public buildings safe and also staffing these meetings.
Yep, thank you very much.
Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents?
Larry Storr, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha 68132. I'm opposed to it. I guess it hasn't passed yet, so they won't necessarily enforce it against me today, but they might. But this code of conduct thing, for example, why not use the city and the county together to arrest citizens for misbehaving in the court chambers or the legislative hallway or the legislative chamber, for looking cross-eyed at somebody, for wearing a t-shirt that somebody found offensive, for saying a word or two that somebody found offensive. Excuse me, this is a national thing. This code of conduct is all over the airwaves this week. Are you part of a national association?
Larry, we're talking about a security arrangement with Douglas County on this item.
I know.
So stay on topic, please.
Put your words in my mouth for me. Thank you.
Any other opponents to number 31? Seeing none, public hearing's closed.
Non-action items, items 32 through 40, do not require public hearing or city council consideration at this meeting, but will be placed on a future agenda for public hearing and/or vote. The reason for non-action is noted after the item on the agenda, as well as the date the item is expected to appear on agenda for consideration.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Johnson. Melton. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Hug. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Meeting is adjourned at 3:50.